Donald Trump is attending a critical hearing in his case involving classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago.
It adjourned just a few minutes ago with no resolution on a trial date.
Just over 500 miles away in Atlanta, the judge overseeing the Georgia election interference case against Trump and his co-defendants will hear closing arguments this afternoon.
If he decides to disqualify the district attorney, then her whole office risks losing this case against Donald Trump.
And hanging over all of this is Supreme Court, which agreed to take up Donald Trump's claims of immunity this April.
Donald Trump's whole strategy is delay, delay, delay.
I think all of the cases should be dealt with before November, because after that, should he become president, I don't think any of it's going to get heard.
The two front-runners traveling to the southern border, making dueling appearances.
Instead of playing politics with the issue, why don't we just get together and get it done?
This is a Biden invasion over the past 3 years.
One man who now actually wants to work with Republicans to get something done on the border. One man who wants to keep an issue alive.
Good evening once again. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. It is just 249 days until the election, and there is one word to sum up this last week: delay. Delay of the criminal court case against Donald Trump, delay as Congress kicks the can again to fund the government, and delay on taking real action to fix our southern border. So let's get smarter and bring in our nightcap. NBC legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Danny Savalas is here. Dan Nathan with CNBC's Fast Money. Basil Smikle, Democratic strategist and former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party. And comedian John Fugelsang. All right, gentlemen, let's start with the many, many, many cases against Donald Trump. John, I turn to you first. The Supreme Court is now going to take up this immunity case for Trump,
yes,
which no matter how they decide, he's getting more delays,
yes,
right? Delay, delay, delay. Has he already won, given where we are in terms? No. Okay.
Won what?
Well, his best defense has been slow play this, and that's exactly what's happening.
These delays will all be forgotten. There's no way he wins this race with karma. Look, this Supreme Court, I got to say, I'm convinced they're the best court money could buy. Seriously, bribe back better. Bribe back better. He's getting everything he wants from them. And you look at this court now delaying this, trying as hard as they can. And I have no problem with this case. This election interference case is the biggest case in the history of this country. I mean, 220-odd years of peaceful transfer of power until this. It's huge. If it starts right before the election, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with voting during a commercial break. But people have got to look at this and realize how rigged this is. And these 6 justices, you got 2 of them appointed by George W. Bush, who the majority of Americans voted against when he got the White House. 3 of them appointed by Donald Trump, who the majority of Americans voted against twice. And the 6th, Clarence Thomas, by George H.W. Bush, who opposed the '64 Civil Rights Act. Americans don't choose the justices who choose our laws for us. And this highlights that.
Damn. Danny, can we talk about what the Supreme Court is looking at, right? They could make a decision that says a U.S. citizen can operate above the law with no consequence. If they do side with Donald Trump, where does that leave us?
It would be monumental. I mean, on the one hand, the mere fact that they are taking this case up speaks volumes, because they very easily could have, and many people predicted they might just say, look, the district court issued an opinion. It was well-reasoned. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a well-reasoned opinion. There's not a whole lot of debate here. Everybody seems to be in agreement. They could have denied the request to even hear the case in the first place. But you're absolutely right in that the real goal here, and it's strange because none of the lawyers will put it in the papers and the judges don't really talk about it, but the unspoken mission here is delay and avoidance of delay. And I'll say this, Steph, in 2023, I was saying some of these trials will not start until 2025. And, John, everybody laughed at me, and now here we are. Here we are, all these former federal prosecutors who are much smarter than me. They were on here saying, no way. And they're right, in a sense. In federal court moves very quickly. So in an ordinary case, you can expect it to go to trial very quickly. Bush v. Gore is a great example of the Supreme Court moving quickly when it wants to, John. You're exactly right. But with these cases, knowing that there would be such monumental legal issues, presidential immunity is just one of many, that this case would take a long time. All 4 criminal cases would take a long time. And I couldn't point to any specific thing except to say that things happen, or in Latin, thingus happinus. It's a legal principle. But things would happen, and here we are. Things have happened. Delay is happening. We shouldn't be that surprised. And I still stand by what I said in 2023. Some of these trials aren't going forward until 2025. Save the tape, but don't save the tape. Just remember I said it tonight, and that's it.
Dan, a lot of Democrats are furious. They're now panicked about it. But do you really think there's voters out there that are actually saying, I think he's guilty. I think he's corrupt. I think maybe he was involved in election interference. However, I need a court decision to help me to decide how I'm going to vote. I am not familiar with any of those voters. How about you?
No, I'm not either. And I think that Donald Trump has kind of embraced this, right? If you think about just his tactics over the last, call it, year since these cases have been kind of bubbling up. I mean, he's happy to sit in a courtroom. He's happy to walk outside the courtroom and kind of tell the narrative that he wants.
All our cameras are there. We don't go to his rallies. We go to court.
Right. So I mean, listen, aside from this, Eugene Carroll, that money, I think that really freaked him out, right? So he's got to put a bond up or whatever, however they're going to, that freaked him out. That kind of hits at the core of who he is. And you know, we'll see how that plays out over time. But these other ones, I mean, obviously the one in D.C., that's the one that sends him to jail. The other stuff is kind of like, you know, what's going on in Florida is a bit of a sideshow. What's going on here in New York is a bit of a sideshow. And I think a lot of folks said, let's focus on the really important one, to John's point, the one that really is actually 200 years of history in the making and might be the next 100 years of how we kind of operate in our democracy. So, again, I'm probably with you, sadly, 2025.
But hold on. Don't they want us to believe the hush money case is a sideshow? It sounds like it, right? Oh, you're paying off a porn star. But the reason Stormy Daniels was paid off to withhold information, not from Donald Trump's wife, but from the American voter.
Someone's already gone to prison for it. It is not a sideshow. Donald Trump is an unindicted co-conspirator, and a lot of guys outraged now had no outrage when Michael Cohen did the time for the exact same crime.
And I think the important point here is that we have to make sure he's being held accountable for everything that he's done. I agree that the majority of voters are probably not weeding through all of the legalese that is now going to be extended for another several weeks and months. They'll be more motivated by the IVF decision in Alabama than they will be likely with this. However, holding him accountable so that future presidents can't do exactly what he's doing is incredibly important. I'd also add this point. It strikes me as ironic and problematic that the folks who were out there on January 6th, many of them have been indicted and sent to prison, yet Donald Trump is still out. The ringleaders have not been tried and convicted, but all of the so-called foot soldiers have been. I have no sympathy for them, but it really does go to show you the difference in how he acts and the privilege that he has versus all the folks that he sends out to do his dirty work. That is made especially true when he goes in front of a crowd and talks about how African Americans should completely understand the position that he's in because he's being persecuted in the ways we're persecuted. If nothing else shows you how different that circumstance is, it's today because of everything you said about who's appointed those Supreme Court justices, he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly how to play the system, and he's doing it in front of our face. So
and he didn't say that to the black voters. No, he said it past the black voters to his white face.
The blacks, right, the objectification of us. So if there is no other example of just how rigged the system how rigged the system is, and how much he is rigging it, it is what we're seeing unfold right now.
Do you think he will be held accountable in Georgia? I don't remember the last time we were talking about election interference on his part or the 20-odd other co-defendants for weeks now. It is all about when Fani Willis and a fellow prosecutor potentially started dating. I mean, the final day of the hearing was today. We haven't talked about Trump in weeks.
A month ago, if you'd asked me what the Georgia case meant to Trump, I would have said it was a real threat. I've always said the federal cases are a far bigger threat, mostly because 90+% of federal cases end in a guilty plea or a verdict. But Georgia was certainly up there in terms of threats. Now I'm not so sure. I think the law on the whole is on the side of the Georgia prosecutors. I think they end up avoiding being disqualified, but that doesn't mean that the case hasn't been fatally injured.
How?
Now, there are many. I'll give you several reasons. Number one.
How does it affect the RICO charges?
How does it affect the RICO? Let me say this. It doesn't affect the substantive charges one iota. If you're talking about does it affect whether or not the defendants are guilty or not guilty, It doesn't. It never has. But practically speaking, this motion could be the end of the Georgia prosecution. Let me game it out for you. For example, Fani Willis and Nathan Wade are disqualified. Really, Fani Willis. She's the architect of this case. Who is going to take it up then? They will have to find a prosecutor who's interested in taking this on.
And the judge chooses it.
And is it going to be the Republican Attorney General in Georgia? I think not. So now you have a political reason why this case dies a slow death. Or, for example, maybe it just hangs in limbo while they find someone to take on the case.
You're telling me the Kraken lady may have flipped for nothing? Is that what you're saying?
Right, exactly right. Some of those defendants are wondering, why did we flip so early? Some of the defendants have already pleaded guilty in the Georgia case. Let me tell you, the law is definitely on the prosecutor's side. The facts are on the defense's side because the facts are salacious. But here's the theory, and it either flies or it doesn't. The theory is that the prosecutors were corrupt because Fani Willis, had a relationship that predated the appointment of Nathan Wade. She appointed Nathan Wade because he was her boyfriend, and therefore the money that went to Nathan Wade, which came back to her in the form of vacations, constitutes not necessarily an actual conflict, but the appearance of impropriety. And that was a major argument today, the legal standard to be applied. They don't even know because this has never come up in this context. So they don't know what legal standard will actually apply. It's all up to Judge McAfee. And ultimately, you're right. Does it affect the substantive guilt or not guilt of the defendants? No. But is it a real problem for this prosecution? Yes.